Hi, it's Claire and welcome to Needle Say More. Today I want to show you how to save your favourite t-shirt design. I absolutely love this Frida Kahlo print. So it's black and white, it's got the lovely embroidered flowers on the head, and there are parts of it like this Frida Kahlo label that I really wanted to keep, but the t-shirt itself was really thin and it looked really shapeless, and it was kind of tight in the wrong places and loose in the wrong places, and it just really needed a freshen up. So I used a ruler and a friction pen. So the friction pens are heat erasable, and I drew an equal border all the way around the print. I didn't want to cut right up to the print, so I didn't want the stitching to be visible on the design. So I went all the way around, make sure I was measuring equally to the edge, and then this line would be erased later when I used the iron to put it on. Once I'd gone all the way around the outside, I checked that I was happy with it, and then I could begin cutting. I cut all the way around the design in this rectangular shape, trying to be as accurate as possible. If it isn't 100% straight, I wouldn't worry too much because we will be stitching it and ironing it in a later stage, but you want to be as accurate as you can as you're cutting around the outside of your design. So in the next stage, we're going to take this design away from the t-shirt. So the design itself is gorgeous. It's just that the t-shirt isn't serving it anymore. So the final cut is along the bottom, and then we're going to have the design left to play with. I would keep the t-shirt. I wouldn't throw it away. It can be recycled. It can be reused. To attach our design onto a new t-shirt, we're going to use Bondaweb, which is almost like iron-on interfacing, but it's just glue. So it's like fusible strands of glue, and it comes on a tracing paper. So if you peel it away from the tracing paper, you can smooth it onto the back of your design. You want to make sure you trim off any loose bits because these can stick to the iron or your ironing board. Be quite unhelpful when they turn into black sticky bits because they can then stick onto other items of clothing. So trim off any excess. You can see that this isn't quite big enough, this rectangle, so I'm going to use some of the bits I cut off just to put as a thin strip across the top so you can patch it. When you've taken some time to smooth it out and you're happy with the size compared to the design of your t-shirt, you're going to take the piece of t-shirt, the design, along to the ironing board with the Bondaweb that you've cut out. I'd take your time at this stage, smoothing it all out, smoothing out the t-shirt, smoothing out the Bondaweb, because if you don't, you can glue a crease into the t-shirt that's really difficult to get out. So it's really worth taking your time at this stage. You can see the thin strip that I've used as the patch at the top has been put into place, and then the tracing paper that comes on the back of the Bondaweb, I would use this to iron the Bondaweb on because it's quite a thick paper and it will stop it melting to your iron. So take as much time as you need at this stage because once it's ironed, it's a permanent bond. I would, at this stage, press the iron on top of the tracing paper. So rather than kind of traditional ironing, you want to press in sections down with your iron. So you can press down and then drag it across the paper, but you don't want to kind of aggravate it too much. You're pressing down quite firmly so that the Bondaweb is fusing to the back of the t-shirt design, and you can almost see it shrinking under the tissue paper, so you can see the bond start to take form. So I've done the top bit first. I'm going to peel this tracing paper off, and you can see the two layers are now bonded together, and then I'm going to fold this paper and use it again at the bottom. I'd fold it because you don't want any glue that is on the paper to then stick to your iron and damage your iron. So then again, we want this pressing mode without touching the top where the glue is because we don't want the glue to stick to the iron. We only want it on the fabric. Once you've ironed the Bondaweb on and you've peeled off the tracing paper, pick up your design and feel it, and it should feel a little bit tacky on the back, and it should be completely bonded to the t-shirt. If there's any bits where it hasn't quite bonded, go back and use the tracing paper to bond again. To get the design on the new t-shirt completely dead centre, I'm folding the t-shirt in half lengthways, and I'm taking a bit of time to smooth it out and make sure I'm folding it dead centre and that I'm going to get a really nice finish when I apply it. Then I'm going to use a friction pen, make some little marks down the front of the t-shirt so that as I'm applying the design, I know exactly where the centre is. Remember, the friction pen will iron and disappear, so this won't be a permanent mark on the front of the t-shirt. It's easy to do this when it's folded rather than with a ruler. So given that it's quite a long design, it's important that I do marks all the way down the t-shirt. Then I can take the t-shirt and put it on the ironing board, and you can see my little dashes down the front of the t-shirt here, and they're going to help me to stick my design dead in the centre of the t-shirt to get a really good finish. To start with, I'm going to place my design on by eye and try and get it where I think is in the middle and line it up, and then I'm going to check with a ruler and check that it's dead centre. So I want this to be a really good finish. You only get one go at this, so it's worth taking your time and making sure you get it accurately in the centre, because once it's ironed on, it's a permanent bond. You might also need to decide how far you want it down from your neckband, whether you want it quite high up near the neckband or a little bit further down. I'm just trimming off a little bit there that I'm not quite happy with, just to keep it looking really nice and a crisp, neat edge at the top. I'm measuring the bottom to make sure it's dead on centre and the top. Once it's all in place and I'm happy with it, I'm using my iron directly onto the print and with a little bit of steam, and this is going to fuse the Bondaweb, the glue fibres, between the t-shirt print and the new t-shirt. So this glue is sticky on both sides. So one side stuck to the back of the t-shirt design and the other side stuck to the t-shirt. And this is going to be a permanent bond. It looks a little bit like a flat pancake now, but once we sew it on, it won't look quite as flat. Once you've secured using the Bondaweb, check that you're happy with it, it's smooth everywhere. Then on the remaining bit of the t-shirt we cut the design out from, I'm just testing different stitches to decide which is going to look best around the design. So I want something that's going to work with the design, but not distract too much attention away from it. It's just kind of going to be in balance with the design. So I'm testing a couple of different stretch stitches that are on my machine. The first stitch that I tried, which was a type of zigzag, created a ridge in between the stitches. So I don't think that's going to work, because I think won't blend in with the t-shirt and it'll make it look really homemade, which is not what I want at all. So this design I've decided to go with is like the abstract stitch. It's lots of wavy lines, and I think that'll be most in balance with the design. This Frida Kahlo label was in the neckline of the original t-shirt, and I did really want to keep this. So I'm just pinning it in on the side of the t-shirt to kind of make it look more professional. I'm just taking my time going all the way around the t-shirt. I didn't want to start on the label because I didn't want there to be too much bump or an overlap on it. So I'm lining up the cut edge of the design with the edge of the presser foot to make sure I can be really smooth and even all the way around the design. Because this is lots of abstract lines, it's kind of going back and forward. It is going to take time to go all the way around the outside. When I get to the corner, I'm just going to keep the needle down, lift the foot up, pivot it, and then go up. So you can see that stitch along the edge. So it's lots of wavy lines. So I think it is in balance with the design. I don't think I'd have been happy with just a simple straight stitch. I think it needed something a bit special to kind of balance out all the detail that is in the print. As you're going round, it's really important not to stretch the t-shirt. You can see that I'm holding it kind of taut and smooth on the base of the sewing machine, but it's really important not to pull it stretched and then stitch it stretched, because you will distort the t-shirt and pull it out of shape. You can probably see that the lines where I've stitched do look a little bit wavy, but this will steam and press out when I've done. So it is really normal for it to look like this, and it will press and steam out. So don't worry if at this point it starts to look a bit wobbly where you've started to sew it in. I'm now approaching the label, and it's really important that I do this really carefully. So I'm taking the pins out as I approach it, and I need to hold it in place because I've got so many lines of stretch stitches. If I sew it in wrong and it twists, or I'm not happy with it, it'll be really difficult to unpick without creating a hole in either the t-shirt or in the design. So if you can see, I'm lifting the foot up and down and just playing around a little bit with the label to get it exactly how I want. If you are struggling at this stage and you do have a label or any bits, I do recommend sewing with tweezers because it's much finer than using your fingers, and you can hold things in position and sew them, and it saves having to unpick, which is really difficult on stretch stitches without creating holes. Started on the corner and I'm going to end on the corner, so on this section the stitching will be overlapped to give it extra strength. On the original t-shirt there was a turnover on the hem of the sleeve, and I did really like this feature, so I'm bolding up the sleeves of this plain white t-shirt because I don't really want it to look too boxy, and I think the sleeves will make it look more flattering. So I'm using a ruler to make sure that the overlap is the same distance, so I don't want them different on each side. And then I'm just going to insert 4 pins onto the top, the bottom and either side, just to secure it in place when I stitch it together. To stitch the turnover in place, I'm using a zigzag stretch stitch on my machine. This is a really tight zigzag, so I don't need to reverse stitch it. So you want to take out your pins and do the stretch stitch. Depending on your machine, it might not let you sew from the very edge of the fabric, so you might want to start about 1/2 centimetre in. This should still secure the turnover but will stop your machine eating the edge of the stretch fabric. So I'm not sewing it all the way around in a big circle, I'm just mirroring what was on the original design, and these 4 lines of stitching all the way around should be enough to secure it. So we have successfully transferred this lovely Frida Kahlo design onto a new t-shirt. I really love that we kept the Frida Kahlo label. I just really love this extra touch that it adds. I think the abstract stitch was the right choice for the print. It balances it well. And I think the turn-ups are just a really nice design feature. So I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I absolutely love this design with the embroidery and the black and white prints. I'm so glad I got to keep it. And I've already worn it loads. So I'm really pleased that I did this upcycle.